welcome to KICKASS Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catechris.com. And my name is Jason J. Rock Houston. It's my pleasure to be speaking with my good friend John Erigo, who many people know as the lead singer of the Dead End Kidz. Now, John, you and I have known each other for a number of years, going so far back that I think originally you and I kind of made contact on MySpace.
Yep, that's true. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and you know, MySpace is kind of funny. People try to go there now. It's kind of like a virtual black hole. It's kind of disappeared, but and Facebook's just taken over. But as far as people that want to kind of know about your band, the Dead End Kidz, what year was the band formed, and what were the years when you guys were active?
The Dead End Kidz was formed out of the ashes of a cover band that was called Basket Case.
Oh, okay.
We had a couple. The funny thing was the original, cover band. We all worked together in the same place, and so it made it kind of easy to stay in touch.
Yeah, fun. Yeah.
And this is going back, I would say, mid '90s.
Interesting. Yeah.
Early '90s, like 90, maybe like 92, 93.
Yeah.
And we were only supposed to play a July 4th block party, and it wound up being a whole thing where we started playing clubs and stuff. And then a couple of guys left. One guy moved, and one guy got promoted, and all this stuff happened. And there was 3 of us out of 5 left, so we decided to go ahead and start writing songs. And then the Dead End Kidz, came about from that. And we stopped being active in, I believe it was 2001. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. Now let me ask you. At the time when you guys formed the first project, which was a cover band, Basket Case. Were you any of you at all like serious musicians, or would you say you kind of taught yourself how to play and got better as you went on?
Well, most of us had been in bands
before,
or were accomplished,
musicians,
at-home players.
Yeah.
I had been inactive for quite a while. I was just a singer. I don't play any instruments.
Okay.
So, but these guys all, played and did some nothing ever really too serious.
Yeah.
And when we got together, it was because one of the guys at work was having a block party and needed a band. So we said, hey, you play, you sing, you play guitar. All right, let's get together and play. And, then it was like, everybody's like, wow, you guys are really good.
Yeah.
So we wound up, starting to play clubs, and they would do some 90s kind of radio stuff without me, and then I would come out and I would bring, the metal.
Yeah.
I always do. And so it was split for a while, and then the guys in the band, I had nothing to do with it. They noticed that when I came out, there was a better reaction, so we dumped the 90s stuff and went all with the metal.
That's kind of interesting, because...
Well, not really metal, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting, because, even in prepping for the interview today, we were chatting online, and I was posting stuff on my page, and I posted today... you guys did a great... This is the Dead End Kidz. You guys did a great Kiss cover of the Ace Frehley track, New York Groove, on this tribute album a number of years ago. And some guy was checking it out today when I posted, and he was saying, what band are you from, man? This is, you guys did a cool Kiss cover. And see, that's the thing. And just like posting that one track, you can see, listening to the track, I mean, you guys sound like really a professional band. You sound very confident, as a vocalist. I was even watching some... video online of you. It was up on YouTube of you singing "Toys in the Attic" by Aerosmith, and you look at the live video and you're up on stage, and man, you come across as confident. Were you always pretty confident, as a singer?
No, not at all.
Because you come across that way, so well practiced.
No, you know what it is. It's hard to explain. I try to tell people this all the time. If you notice that 90% of the time. You see me, I'm wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
In these performance videos, and I always tell people it's hard to explain unless you've been in a band.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like Kiss when they put the makeup on. When I put those sunglasses on, it's almost like I turn into a different personality.
Yeah.
Or the inner rocker in me really comes out. So I was never really that good of a singer, but I put on a good show, and I was able to talk to the crowd between songs really good. And, it was just fun. It was everything I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be, quote-unquote, rock star. So it was fun for me. I didn't care if anybody was there or the place was packed. It didn't matter. And thank you for the kudos on the New York Groove. And and other songs. The New York Groove appeared on a Kiss tribute album. It was my idea to pick that song. We didn't really do that many Kiss songs.
Yeah.
But I told everybody in the band, I said, look, this is one of those songs that, like, everybody knows, and it's like, we can make it so it fits what we do.
Yeah, yeah.
And it used to be our show closer. We used to close with that song, like, all the time. Because, again, it's one of those rallying kind of songs that everybody knows, and when I brought it to the band, they were like, what do you mean that song that Ace did? I said, yeah, but there was a version that Kiss, when Kiss used to play it, when Eric Carr was in the band, there was a version, I forgot what it was on. It was like a bonus track on one of the things they released. And I played that version for the band. I said, this is the way we need to do it. And everybody's like, oh, okay, cool, you know?
Yeah, because, again, that track, when I was listening to it today, you really kind of own it. And I was kind of, I remember a previous interview we'd done about, you were telling me that your favorite Kiss solo album happened to be Paul Stanley's. And I was kind of curious, you know, in prepping for the interview today, I wonder why he chose like a Ace Frehley track rather than a Paul Stanley track. And you just thought that you guys could really kind of own it, I guess.
Well, the thing is, it's hard to sing Paul Stanley songs because his voice is, well, I mean, not so much anymore, but back in the day, very unique and a cut above, and it's like, no matter how many tribute bands you see, anytime they get to the Paul songs, it's like, oh, God, really? I mean, some guys are okay, but you just can't do that.
Yeah.
So, for me as a vocalist, I always tended to side with the Gene songs because they're easier to like translate to, regular singing. And again, with New York Groove, it was a signature song. It was something that wasn't overly heavy, and everybody knew it. Even if they weren't into Kiss or rock, metal. I'll give you an example. One of the guys in the Dead End Kidz, the original 5 of us. Well, almost original. He had a guitar player. He only lasted 1 gig.
Wow.
One of the guys, Scott Carlson, who was involved with Basket Case, he was getting married while the band was together.
Oh, wow.
And so his wife was a very non-rock and roll kind of person, and we told her, well, they were having a live band at the wedding. We're like, look, we got to play at the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And she was freaking out. She's like, oh, my God, these guys are going to come in with their loud, stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a video I have of it somewhere where, like, I'm in a tuxedo because I was, in the bridal party, and I had my hair slicked back, and again, I go to the mic and I say, they told me I can't rock in here, but I brought something that'll help me, and I pulled out my sunglasses and put them on.
Wow.
And we played a couple of songs. We played an original song that was kind of like, it didn't go over too well. And then we played Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of like a toe tapper kind of song. Yeah. And everybody kind of started getting into it. And then we broke into New York Groove. And by the time we were done, the whole place was dancing.
Wow, I love that story.
It was insane. They were so... I felt bad for the band. I was like, because we got a bigger applause than they did.
Amazing. That's a great story. And and it's kind of interesting because what you're just saying about Gene Simmons, because I don't know, I love all the Kiss guys and everything Kiss, but I really always loved Gene singing. He doesn't get enough credit, I don't think, but he's really a pretty good singer. I just have always kind of been, he's been kind of a one guy in Kiss I've really been, really kind of drawn to. His monster and everything.
Yeah, his character comes across on a lot of songs. So it's that was the great thing about Kiss too. Like, they set out to be like
the Beatles.
Have everybody sing lead on different songs. So you kind of like bounce back and forth. Later on, it was really just him and Paul. But you had Paul, who was like the really good melodic singer, and Gene was like the guttural, punch you in the face kind. Yeah,
being the Kiss fan that you are, John, I got to ask you. I'm sure you heard the original demo version of God of Thunder. It was on the box set with Paul originally doing the lead vocal. Kind of interesting to find out that's a Paul Stanley tune. And because, Gene is the one that obviously became known as the God of Thunder. But you sit there and you think, okay, that's what this song was originally supposed to sound like. But then to think, what it must have taken for Bob Ezrin to kind of have that vision, say, no, I think this is a Gene song.
I think you made the right call on that too, and I know it always bothered Paul. I had known about it.
Yeah.
That Paul had really wrote it, but I didn't know the extent of it.
Yeah.
Like that box set came out, and you hear it, and you're like, wow, this is really different.
Yeah, people can go on YouTube if they don't have a box set and check it out. It's really amazing just to kind of hear that transformation.
It's worth it just to hear that. That was definitely that. It was that I always wanted to hear in the G demos for Love Gun with the Van Halen brothers, which finally came out.
Yeah, and before we get into the main topic today, which is going to be Metallica, I got to go a little further talking about the Dead End Kidz, because see, one of the things that's always amazed me about your story, John, or your little journey there in music, is that you're a great supporter of bands and talent, but you started out in your own band, and anybody that's followed you like me over the years knows that the Dead End Kidz wasn't this, you weren't this huge breakout band or anything, but you got it, just being in the Dead End Kidz, you've got a nice little internet kind of fan base that you've built off of that, and the band, anybody wants to check out what the band's done, they can go online. I was seeing today you even have a Reverb Nation for the Dead End Kidz. People can check that out. You guys have released 2 albums, so talk a little bit about the 2 albums that are out there.
Well, thank you for saying all that. Yeah. That's really nice of you. I think the reason that the band still has whatever you want to call it, an internet life.
Yeah.
People still
off of 2 albums, and that's not hard. That's not easy to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we started out, we didn't really know how far it was going to go.
Yeah.
And when we started writing songs, there were never any rules. It was just like, let's just rock. It was very organic and very natural. Everybody pitched in with ideas. Very few songs came in like, okay, this is the song.
Yeah.
Somebody like, I got an idea, and then we would work on it from there. And so like one guy would be responsible for the main idea, and then we just kind of like piece it together. And like I said, I don't play any instruments, but being such a fan of music, and especially this genre of music, I had a good ear for like, okay, that's one time too many. Let's try, this one guitar in this part and 2 in that. Stupid stuff like that that you don't really think about, but you hear it, and then it's like, so it was a very natural songwriting process, and we all got along, really good. And I think that's why, the music is like kind of stood the test of time. Those songs were written a long time ago, and it was so much fun, and we had, a great time. And the funny thing too is because both albums, self-financed.
Yeah.
They're basically live, which I tell people, and they're like, what? And I'm like, we didn't really, the first album we didn't pay a penny for.
Wow.
We recorded for free. And it was kind of like a school that we went to.
You had to learn how to do this,
And it was a school where they were learning engineering, sound and engineering. And one of the guitar players, his father's friend, was the principal of the, the project.
Wow.
And so, we walk in, and you got to go there you got to be there at like 9:30 in the morning, because it's like a school.
Wow.
And so the guy looks at me and he goes, well, "How many songs you want to do?" And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, it's only like a 3-hour class every day." And I said to him, "We have 8 songs."
Yeah.
And he's like, "How many you want to do?" And I said, "We have 8 songs." I said, hit the button, and just let us go.
Oh, wow.
And in 3 days we had 8 songs done. So
yeah, you really went to rock and roll high school there.
When you're operating like that, you want to get the most out of it. We went in very prepared too. We practiced like crazy, to get those songs tight like that. And it was the same thing with the second one. The second CD, The Unfinished Business, that came out in, was it 2000? It was right at the end of what we were doing. And it was the same. Well, actually, it was afterwards. We had broken up for a while. We went back in and did it, and it was again. We didn't have any rehearsals. Everybody showed up and knew their parts.
Wow,
that's how good we knew these songs. And it's like I'll never forget it because the guy that recorded us for the second album, his name is Nicky James, and he was the guy responsible for all the music on the Chris Angel show, Mind Freak.
Oh wow, amazing!
Yeah, he did all the music for that. So when the day that I went to meet Mickey to talk about doing the album, he had a Kiss Army shirt on, so I knew we were going to hit it off.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. And see, that's the thing.
So, he actually did New York Groove for us too, which was a separate session.
Oh.
But
wow.
Getting back to the Unfinished Business, the guys came in and they did, all the music and stuff. So it was time for me to go do my vocals, and it was the middle of July in New York, and it was 95 degrees outside. And I walk in the studio, and he's like, "The air conditioner's broke."
Oh man.
I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, the air conditioner works in the sound in the control room, but it doesn't work where you have to sing."
Oh, thanks.
I said, "Dude, just press record, give me a bottle of water, and just let me go." And I did. I did all the, everything straight. That's again when you're on a budget and you know the songs. There's no reason why you can't. I mean, if I had the chance, sure, I would go back and fix little things here and there, but. That's a good part about rock and roll too, right? It's missing today with all the technology and stuff. Is just go in and do it. Do it raw, do it live, do it. Give it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
even if there's little mistakes in there, sometimes it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of. I don't know if you're all a Cheap Trick fan, but that's kind of what I tell people when about the track. I Want You to Want Me. I don't know, John, if you've ever heard the original studio version. It almost sounds like a completely different swampy country song. What they did to it on Budokan, I tell you, it gave it a new life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also talking a little more about the Dead End Kidz. See, the Dead End Kidz, you remind me when we were prepping for the interview a couple of days ago, talking back and forth through email, I accidentally referred to it as the Dead End Kidz, and you remind me, it's with a Z. And that's obviously because of being a Kiss fan, you kind of had that connection. And
No, that's not what. You.
Okay, so tell me, to correct me.
The reason why was, well, first of all, I got the name from watching Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
That's where I came up with the name. If you remember I don't know if you watch Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
There's an episode with a little kid. He's like, "I want an Easter egg. I want an Easter egg," Okay. And Bugs Bunny shows up to his house because he wants to get back at the kid for something. And he knocks on the door, and the door opens, and these guys, all these big thug guys show up. Okay. And if you look at the sign on the door, it says Dead End Kidz, and the S is backwards or something. Oh,
amazing. I'm glad you did the interview just to find that out, because, the other point I was getting ready to make was, so I was going on YouTube and seeing what I could find, and first I typed in just the Dead End Kidz, and it came up with, I typed it right, but it came up Dead End Kidz with an S. It was a completely different band. And then I typed in your name, John Erigo, and the Dead End Kidz with a Z. I got a bunch of stuff that came up. So I was just wondering if you were even aware there's another band but with a different...
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting to. Yeah. I was just telling you how we got the name.
Yeah.
So we were going okay. I said, let's call it the Dead End Kidz. Everybody's like, yeah, cool, whatever. So we get together and we're writing songs and we're, making our own little home recordings and stuff. And this is I didn't even have a computer at this time. I had something called Web TV.
Oh, wow, okay.
Prehistoric stuff.
Yeah.
So I was on the internet, but not with a computer. All of a sudden I get an email from this band from Pennsylvania called the Dead End Kidz. And I had no
idea, of course, yeah. And
I was like, and they found out about us because we had a website at that time that one of the guys at the band set up. And they write to me and they're like, what do you think you're doing? That's our name. And then they called me up, and I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, look, where are you guys at? And they're like, well, we're kind of we were together 10 years ago. And I was like, so what are you all upset about? Oh, we own the rights to the name. I said, well, we'll spell it different.
Oh, yeah.
If you get signed, we'll change our name. If you get signed, we'll, whatever. So that's where it stayed, and they kind of disappeared. They were actually kind of popular in the Philadelphia area. I think one of the guys in Cinderella was in a band called the Dead End Kidz.
Oh, interesting. That just boggles the mind, especially to find out You got your idea from a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But, I think, too, it's kind of organic that you start out doing covers like a lot of people. And then, especially when you're in a band, into a band like KISS, where these guys are write great original music, it's only natural that you'd want to have a band where you're doing your own original music. So, and again, I think it's a unique story because you guys got 2 albums out. You got a great little fan base still to this day because of that. Those 2 albums, that one band, people are still following you. But now I want to get into a little bit about Metallica. Of course, I've known, John, that you like me are a huge KISS fan, but you're also very much a Metallica fan. And it's kind of interesting, Metallica and KISS, 2 different types of bands, but they've kind of still got one thing they have in common is they both got like a loyal fan base. So I know early on you were also very involved in like having your own Metallica fanzine, I believe. So could you talk a little bit about starting the fan scene, and what was the point when Metallica came on your radar and you became a Metallica fan?
Yeah, it wasn't a Metallica fanzine. It was just a fanzine of hard rock and heavy metal. It was called KICKASS Monthly.
Oh, okay.
Which at the time was a very bold name because the word ass wasn't
in there.
as as usable as it is now. Like, you could say shit on TV. It doesn't get beeped out. So it was kind of a bold thing to come up with a name like that. But the way it started was now anybody listening to this that's, younger is not going to be able to grasp the concept of not having a cell phone, not having
the internet,
not having not even having cable TV yet. So here I am, excuse me. I started listening to KISS in '76, and so in 1979 I saw KISS for the first time, and that ignited my passion even more.
I bet, yeah.
I'm like, as I got into KISS in '76, I'm like, well, if this is out there, what else is out there?
Yeah.
And today, you hear somebody mention a band and you could jump online and have their whole catalog right in the palm of your hands.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that back then. There was no way to research
anything.
A band. It was just like it was like impossible. You had to really want to find it.
And you
had to find different ways to find it.
And that's why even back in those days, when you and I were growing up in the 70s and 80s, I mean, really, the way you'd follow a band is like you'd buy Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, Cream Magazine, the Faces, Rock Scene. I mean, and a lot of times it's not because it was pre-internet. Like you could actually go to a concert. You didn't know what they played at the show the night before. You didn't know what the set list was for the whole tour. Right. The bands would come into town and be like, it was very different back in the day.
Yeah. So I started trying to figure out, well, okay, if this is there, where am I going to find stuff like it that I might like,
Yeah.
And at first we went to the library and you could take out albums back then. I mean,
albums.
So archaic.
And even back then they had music stores. Does anybody know what that is?
And then, right. And then you would go to a record store and like we had this store in a mall by us that had a tiny little section in the front. It was like import albums.
Oh,
the rock section.
Yeah.
And it seemed like everything in there had this like really like crazy album cover.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that's how it started. And, because you couldn't read. The problem, like what you said, with like Cream and Hit Parader and those kind of magazines, they only wrote about like
the popular bands.
The big bands.
Yeah.
They wrote about AC/DC, KISS, Ted Nugent, eventually Van Halen, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was like then I found AC/DC and I found Thin Lizzy and UFO, and so that kind of stuff was kind of easy to find because it was already out. But this little section in the record store was all the stuff from out of the country or whatever.
Yeah, what is this like?
And I would pick it up and I'd be like, Angel Witch.
Yeah, wow.
What the heck is an Angel Witch?
Yeah.
What is that? Hey, it thumbed through something else. I'd be like, Riot. Wow, that's pretty cool. And thumbed through Tigers of Pantang. Bands like that. This new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah. Those are the bands that, like you said, were not getting covered in Circus magazines. Like.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened was, the first show I went to. This is another story.
Uh-huh.
Again, sorry, but go back to KISS.
That's fine.
The first show I went to was Madison Square Garden, 1979, and I bootlegged it.
Oh wow!
With a cassette recorder.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first 3 songs of the tape are completely screwed up because I was jumping up and down on my chair.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
You know, so the tape is all like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And eventually, my again, so old school. My dad took us to the concert.
Oh yeah, I can.
It was me, my younger brother Joe, and Bob Downey, rest in peace, my buddy, the guy who I started Kick-Ass Monthly with.
Oh wow!
And so my dad saw me. He goes, come on. He's give me the tape recorder. It's not going to come out good with you jumping up and down like that, right?
Yeah, wow.
So he takes the tape recorder. And my dad's like a Mr. Frank Sinatra lover, so it was really weird that he was at a Kiss show.
Yeah, yeah.
But the tape came out great. After I went back and listened to it.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. My God, this is like freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So to this day, that recording is still circulating.
Amazing, amazing. Wow, I love that.
It's actually on YouTube if you look it up.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden, I think it was July 27th, if I remember right.
Okay.
1979. You can listen to it, and you can hear the first 3 songs screwed up. That's how you know it's my recording.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to this day, it's still, being traded and whatever. I've seen it on some torrent sites too.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so that got me into tapes.
Yeah.
That got me into like bootlegs and
trading and
then I found out that if you go in the back of Circus Magazine,
yeah, I remember those
there
ads.
were the ads and people would advertise that they had, concert tapes. We trade or buy, sell. And so I started trading, and then I started getting pen pals, and then I started selling tapes.
Wow.
And so the whole, you can hear Metallica talk about this too at times, how the tape trading scene was so instrumental with metal back then, because again, we had no means of finding out other bands. So if you would get a pen pal in Germany, like I did, you would eventually get an Accept, live show, and you're like, oh my God,
what is this?
So you would trade your Accept live show, and then you would get like a Saxon show, and then you just kept going and going and going, and then you'd start getting demos from bands. It was a whole community of us that laid the grounds for, the metal scene. So a few years go by, so now it's 1981, the Kiss thing was 79.
Yeah.
So Bob and myself, we were like, well, there's still got to be more out there.
Just kidding, yeah.
So we had gotten some, for people that don't know, a fanzine is a fan-made magazine. So basically back then it was just like a bunch of Xerox page stapled in the corner together.
But you and your buddy put together, yeah. It was your...
Yeah, we would place the pictures on the paper, and my dad would take it to his place of work and Xerox us however many copies each page we needed, and we'd staple them together, and we sold them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but we had this idea that, hey, we can advertise our own tapes in the back, so this way we can keep that going, and then maybe people will tell us about bands that we don't know about because they read our thing, or maybe actual bands will see it and write to us. And that's how it started. That was the idea. But then, and I tell people this all the time, I still remember having the conversation with Bob where I sat down with him and I said, are we going to have enough bands to write about every month?
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
And it was like scary. It was like, we got AC/DC, Kiss, Van Halen, Judas Priest, where we go from there? We'll just wing it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hopefully people, so this all lays into, now it starts like the first issue sells like 5 copies, and then it's up to 20. And
what were you, do you remember what you were selling them for at that time?
It was like $1.
And like, how would people find out about it? Like, you'd sell it like at the music stores, or
we would we'd put an ad in the back of Circus or Hit Parade.
Oh,
or whatever.
wow! Yeah, that's
And that's how it started, and then we branched out to like local record stores, and we would like bring them like 20 copies for the month. And then when the new issue came out, we'd go in and collect the money and give them the new one.
I mean, that is so cool, John. I mean, it's so like pre-internet in the sense that, I mean, it's basically it's a lot easier these days because you get your own website up there and just put up whatever you want. But I mean, that is like really on the ground level. Like you said, your dad would take it to work and kind of help you create it. I mean, wow.
Yeah. So what we do is we had to come up with like a format. So the format was basically, it was mostly record with album reviews.
Yeah.
And then we threw in some concert reviews, and then we had like a news section, like if we heard rumors and stuff from our friends or our pen pals of stuff that was going on. And eventually it got to the point where bands started sending us stuff, and lo and behold, one day, boom, this tape from this band that we never heard of before called Metallica shows up.
Oh, wow.
And the story goes that Bob's address was in the magazine, so, because we didn't. We had no idea. We didn't think anybody was really going to be sending us stuff. So all of a sudden he calls me up one day and he's like, John, I got this tape. I'm like, okay. He's like, it's this band Metallica from California. I'm like, who the hell are they? He's like, I don't know, but you got to hear this tape.
Huh.
So I had this thing. We all had this thing back then. If you had a tape that was rare, you never played it in your car because you were afraid the car stereo was going to eat the tape.
And let me interrupt you here for a minute. This tape you got at Metallica, was it when Dave Mustaine was still in the band or after he'd already been kicked out?
Yeah, it's the Hit the Lights demo.
Oh, wow.
It was the first demo that they had no records out. This was them trying to get, like any other band, trying to get publicity, trying to get the word out. So he calls me up and he's like, you got to hear this tape. So I go over to his house, and I take the tape, but I can't listen to it on the drive home because there's no way I'm playing it in my car.
Yeah.
And I had to go. I can't remember where I had to go. I don't know if I had to go to band practice or I had to do something important. So I got home, and at the time I was living with my friend's family because my family had moved out of New York.
Yeah.
And I give it to my friend Ed, and he was in a metalhead too. And I'm like, obviously, because that's why we were friends. And I'm like, dude, he's like, Bob says this is awesome. Listen to it while I'm gone. I'll be back.
Yeah.
So I go out, I come home, he's like, holy shit, you gotta listen to this. I'm like, that's what Bob said.
Wow.
So I'm like, what is it? He goes, I can't even explain it, just sit down and listen to it. And I did, and by the time the first song was on, my jaw was on the ground. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't the most technically gifted band back then, and James wasn't really a good singer.
Yeah.
But there was just something about it compared to everything else that we had.
At that time, yeah.
As unpolished as it was just unbelievable. There were bands like Venom and stuff that played fast and loud, but this was different.
I mean, a lot of times when you hear stuff in its rawest form, it's really when they're kind of, young and hungry and right at the peak,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have any money and they just want to take over the world,
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing moment. I remember that clear as a bell because I couldn't believe what I was listening to. And at the same time, okay, it's 1982, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're never going to play this on the radio.
Yeah.
It's like, how are these guys going to... this is great, but where's it going to go? That was my initial thought.
Yeah.
As great as it is, it's like, he's not really a singer, so it's like, what are they going to do? I said, this will be fun to see live.
Yeah. Wow.
And so what happened was again, this was old school. Me and Bob kind of split up the territories, I guess you could say, of who did what stores and who took the magazines where, and eventually it was even like that with bands. Like Bob would hang out with Raven, Anvil, and I would hang out with Raven, and stuff like that. And I would hang out with Riot, and Bob would hang out with Metallica.
Lucky Bob, yeah.
Yeah, but so we have the tape. Nobody knows who this band is, and I remember going to Bob's house on like a Friday, and he's like, I'm going to Johnny Z tomorrow. And Johnny Z, for those of you who don't know, is the guy that broke Metallica, the guy that had Megaforce, records. And he goes, I'm taking this tape to Johnny Z and see if he can do anything. And at the time, he really didn't have much going on. He had the a store in a flea market.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, and so he had some albums coming out, and a week later I get a phone call from Johnny Z, and he's like, yeah, you guys brought me that tape. Now Johnny Z told me he already had the tape.
Yeah.
Years later, this is what he told me. But I don't know how or when he got it. I know Bob did mention it to him, so where it goes from there, I really don't know.
Wow.
But I do know that he knew about them and we knew about them before anybody else on the East Coast. If you didn't live in California,
yeah,
you didn't know who they were. So we knew, and then not that much longer after that, they came to New York, and the rest is history.
So as far as you getting into Metallica, and it really kind of once their career started to take off, I mean, were you there since the very first album, or as a fan?
Before the first album.
Well, I mean, as a fan, what was the point when you heard that? I guess you heard the very first album. Did you think, oh wow, this is more of the same, or they've really progressed their sound, or what were your thoughts when you heard the very first?
Well, I got to see them a few times before the first album came out, which was a treat too.
Yeah.
And the first album was their live set, same exact order, everything. That's how they played. That was it. So I saw them before the album came out. So when the album came out, it was just like, oh, cool, this is Metallica.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
We had already known. To the rest of the world, I was like, who the fuck are these guys?
Yeah, I'm glad I reached out to you today to do this because, initially I was going to just talk to you about Kiss, but then I thought, well, he has some history here with Metallica as a fan, I know. And it's kind of interesting to find out 2021 marks the 40th anniversary of Metallica. So you're a guy that's been kind of following Metallica, for that whole 40 years. That's kind of interesting.
Well, I let's put it this way. For somebody that didn't live in California, I've followed them since day one.
Yeah.
I got to see and hang out with them before or around the time Kill 'Em All came out because I had already made good friends with the band Raven.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really clicked with John and Mark Gallagher, the Gallagher brothers. Great band. I'm still friends with those guys. They're the best. They're so awesome.
I'm glad. It's cool to hear. Yeah.
They had the famous Kill 'Em All for One tour. Because you had Kill 'Em All, and Raven's album was called All for One. So they called it the Kill 'Em All for One tour.
Oh, I love it.
And I had seen Metallica because they opened for Venom 2 nights. When Kirk Hammett first joined the band, maybe his it was 2 nights, it was maybe his second or third time playing with them live. And, and then when they toured with Raven, I was such good friends with Raven, I was backstage,
Mm-hmm.
and there was the Metallica boys. So while Raven was sound checking, me and my friend would talk to Metallica, it was just so cool to be on that level with them where they, you didn't have to pay $5,000 to get backstage.
Yeah.
Do an ultimate VIP meet and greet or whatever. So it was really cool, to watch a band from really
early days,
before having an album out. And if you want to know the moment that I knew they were going to be huge, it's again something that I'll never forget. It was already up to Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Now, up until now, MTV is around and the radio's playing metal, and you have Headbangers Ball, and I'm like, okay. So they get on tour with Ozzy.
Yeah.
They're opening for Ozzy. Now, they hadn't had any songs on the radio.
Until then,
Right? They didn't have any videos. They didn't make a video till the next album.
Yeah.
So, for a band at that time to not have any radio play at all, not even one song, and no videos, and I'm standing in a sold-out arena, and all of a sudden I see 15,000 people standing up with their fists in the air doing die,
yeah.
die. And I just looked around, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do all these people know?
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was that word of mouth, that street kind of
cred.
They call it now guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
Where it was just like the metal community just knew who they were and loved them without any help from mass media.
And they almost, I remember back at that time, Metallica almost prided themselves on, hey, we don't do music videos and stuff. And,
right,
yeah,
exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so to see a band go from playing in a club in front of 200 people to that with no help,
yeah.
I knew that they were just meant to be something beyond just a great metal band.
Yeah, and also on that tour, you kind of see at that point when they're starting to really be at the peak of their career. I mean, as far as their popularity is just way out there. Not just in the United States, but it was starting to get worldwide.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely, without a doubt.
And, yeah. And another question I got for you, John, is a guy that's been there since, as far as around Metallica from the very early days. Were you surprised when you heard Dave Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica, or what were your thoughts on that?
That's another thing. I almost got to see them with Mustaine, but
wow, yeah.
My dad was getting my mom had passed passed away in '81, right before we started Kick-Ass Monthly.
Oh wow.
And he was getting remarried, and I'll never forget it. It was Metallica, the Rods, and Vandenberg. What a weird combination.
Adrian Vandenberg from Whitesnake, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they were playing the show, and I couldn't go because it was the wedding was the next day, and I was the best man, and my dad was, "Here, you can't go." I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, wow.
So I missed out on seeing like one of Mustaine's last gigs. I really didn't know too much about him at the time.
Yeah.
So when I heard why he got kicked out, it made sense. You know, like, oh, he's really bad.
I mean, and it really, he was really angry about being kicked out of the band, as understandably you would be. But I dare say that had Dave Mustaine not been fired from Metallica, the world may not have ever known what a great singer the guy is. I mean, he even said he almost became Megadeth's lead singer accidentally, because he originally wanted to have somebody else sing his songs, but he just could not find anybody to sing the songs he was writing the way he was hearing them in his head.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't want to deal with another person to pay too.
Yeah. And now another question I got for you, somebody who's been around Metallica from very early on. Did you ever get a chance to meet Cliff Burton? What was that like? Because he of course died tragically young, and again he was he tragically died like at 24, I think, right when Metallica was starting to take off.
Yeah, I was around them a couple of times. Not as closely as
other guys.
Some people.
Yeah.
Like I know Bob got close with them. Cliff was like one of those he was like a powerful kind of presence kind of guy. He didn't have to say much to get his point across.
Yeah.
And he was very cool. He was very just kind of laid back, confident kind of guy.
Yeah.
I remember being in a room with him and Rob Hunter, Wacko Hunter from Raven, who was a complete lunatic. He was the exact opposite. And to be in the room with the two of them, and all they wanted to know about was Twisted Sister.
Yeah, I could not picture that. That's amazing, story to hear.
At that time, Twisted Sister was still a club band.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and they were a lot heavier than what people know Twisted Sister to be.
Yeah.
I grew up in Long Island where Twisted Sister was Kings for 10 years.
Before that.
And believe me, man, when I tell you Twisted Sister before the albums was so much better than they were when the album, the songs they were doing back then and the shows were just unbelievable. I mean, but that's my opinion. I mean,
kind of
to would probably tell you something different.
Kind of to make your point, though, of course, that they had that real big album in '84, Twisted Sister. I'm talking about now, Stay Hungry. But it's kind of funny. Years later, when they get back together, reunited, I think the biggest selling album of their career now is that Christmas album they put out about 10 or 15 years ago. Can you imagine Twisted Sister, the best-selling album, is a Christmas album?
All right, real quick sidetrack story.
Yeah.
Real quick. Twisted Sister, and again, I just told you, we used to take the Kick-Ass Monthly, throw it up on the stage. He would talk about it all the time. Eventually, I got him to come over to my house. This is before the first EP was out.
Yeah.
Sat in my basement for 2 hours with me and Bob. We interviewed him. It was awesome. Everything was great. They go to record their first album, freaking awesome, amazing.
Yeah.
He comes back, he's like, yeah, man, all the songs that we didn't put on the first album, we're putting on the second album, and the second album came out, and only one song was from the leftovers, and everything else was new.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't like it as much, so I wrote this really, really, really bad review. Started all this heat with Twisted Sister. It was a big controversy. Dee was going on the radio.
Oh, wow.
Bad-mouthing us and stuff. Come full circle, 15, 20 years later, I go to some, like, horror convention.
And you see him. Yeah.
And Dee Snider is there for Strangeland. He's promoting it. And I walk up to him, and I told him who I was. At first, he was a little, Twisted, Kick-Ass Monthly. We hashed it out, and then he told me, he goes, you know that song on Stay Hungry, Don't Let Me Down?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He goes, that song is about you guys.
Amazing. Wow.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. He goes, I wrote that song about what happened with Kick-Ass Monthly. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, that's freaking cool. Sorry to sidetrack that, but I had to get that in.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because, we could talk about Dee Snider maybe at another time, but the only thing I'll say about Dee Snider, I was a pretty loyal Twisted Sister fan. I like a lot of the albums they put out, but I think it's very sad. Like I loved his last solo album he did. I thought, oh wow, this is some of his best stuff. But interestingly enough, he's at a point now where he doesn't write any of his music. I guess he thinks he found a formula and it sells well, so he's sticking with that. He has another one coming out in a couple of weeks, but I think it's very sad. I read in an interview recently where he said he just kind of is at the point where he quit writing music. And I mean, back in the day, I thought, he was one of the best songwriters. It's kind of a shame because he's like, I just got to a point where I feel I can't write songs anymore. I think that's kind of sad, but back in the day, he was a great writer.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote everything for the band, but I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
He's not done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
he's not. It'll come back.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yeah.
So anyway, Black Album, right?
Yeah.
Back in Black. Back to the Black Album.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where we're going to get to today because, I mean, that's Metallica, which is to kind of move all these years ahead to 1991 when the album was originally released. Initially, when that album was released, even many years later, like in 2021 today as we're talking, people either really love that album or they really hate it because they're real diehard fans, have been there since day one like you, John. They had a certain image of Metallica, like nothing but metal, nothing but hard rock. To them, the so-called Black Album is almost a pop album.
That's correct, and I kind of equate it to when Kiss put out Dynasty.
Yeah, and
you want to like it, and you like some of it.
Yeah.
But some of it, you're like, what?
What is this?
Because what happened with Metallica, what happened with Kiss and Judas Priest and a lot of other bands, you get to that point where you
want to hit.
you think you need to change for some reason.
Yeah.
And it alienates the original group of fans.
Yeah.
And it brings in a bunch of newer fans, but because you've changed your sound, the newer fans aren't from that same cloth as the original fans, which turns off the original fans even more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, like with Kiss, you had, rock disco.
Yeah.
And all the older fans were like, think about if you saw Kiss at the Beacon Theater in 1974, just shred Got to Choose, and then they're playing I Was Made for Loving You and Dirty Living. You're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So, they saw, I remember the saying was, oh, they're a kids band now.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
That's what I used to hear, when Dynasty and Unmasked came out. It's a kids band.
I mean, even back...
The same thing kind of happened with Metallica, because you had all this fire and fury, and, the Stained songs lasted for a few albums, and, Kirk started writing, and then, you release three masterpieces in a row, and then you had all the controversy with Injustice for All with the sound, but it was still amazing, because you had songs. Yeah,
and even going back to Injustice for All, for a minute, I mean, that was a big whole thing when they did the video for one, and they're like, oh, we're only going to do the one video. And then, of course, when you get to the Black Album, and the first thing they released as a single is Enter Sandman, I will say, one of the greatest guitar riffs of all time ever written. I mean, that riff sticks in your head, and it's a very memorable track. But after that was a hit, they wanted more, and probably the record company started demanding, no, you guys are going to make another video and another video.
Yeah, well, videos help you stretch out your tour too. They toured for like 3 years on that album.
Yeah.
Incredible. I still don't know how they did that, but when I first heard the Black Album, I had mixed feelings about it, because as much as I liked some of it, like to this day, I Nothing Else Matters and The Unforgiven. For me, as a Metallica fan, I don't like it.
When you think of
I'll tell you this too.
Yeah.
No, but I'll be honest with you, because I was there from the beginning.
Of course, yeah.
There are certain bands you want to sound a certain. I mean, it's like selfish of us to want a band to never change.
Yeah.
Because we're not the ones sitting in their shoes writing the songs and stuff. So it's hard, because when you have nothing, you sound like Kill 'Em All. You sound like Kiss Alive. You sound like that.
You're much more hungry, as we said. Yeah.
You want to kill. You want to take on the world, and then all of a sudden, your wallet's full of money, and you don't have that anymore. And you're older, and your tastes change, and it's natural. People don't understand that, but when you get a taste of that fame and that money, it's got to change a little. We're only human, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember people complaining on the Black Album. I mean, on Ride the Lightning with Escape.
Yeah.
They were like, "What the hell is this?"
Well,
are you kidding me? It's a great song.
And if you've ever heard any of these guys do interviews over the years, like I've heard where James Hetfield specifically was saying, early on, I was kind of a shy, introverted kind of guy. I didn't talk much. He goes, Lars, he was a shitty drummer when I met him. He didn't have a clue how to play the drums. But I got with the guy because of my selfishness to want to make it in the business. He had connections. He knew a guy that, ran Metal Blade Records. He says, so I knew he had a connection that could maybe help us. So that's why I got with him, not because he was the greatest drummer in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like things change,
Yeah.
And like you mentioned Sandman, I know I've read that James Hetfield hates that song.
It sticks in your head. That's probably part of the reason.
He's got to play it every night.
Yeah.
He's got no choice.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the Black Album. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
It's almost kind of like.
Still enough on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say almost kind of like a guilty pleasure in your album collection. You say.
As far as Metallica goes, yeah. I mean, any other band puts that album out, I'd probably like it a lot more.
Yeah. See.
That's what I'm trying to say. Because you have that thrash metal standard of Metallica, especially those first 3 albums. It's unbelievable what they did, And then, like I said, people think they took a little bit of a backslide with Injustice because the songs getting longer and the production, nobody was crazy about it. All that stuff with Jason was going on, silly stuff.
I mean, and speaking of Jason, here's the interesting thing. He's now, since this album's come out, he's been out of the band now for over 20 years now, and still probably he's making a ton of money off that one album. Not just other albums he made, but that's the album. And he didn't even really. I think he only wrote on one of his songs, and and because of that, he's got a legacy. But the album is very interesting. I equivalent to this. I was having a conversation with very much like you were saying about Metallica. You've been a fan since day one. Like I was a Motley Crue fan from way back. Right before the first album, as soon as the first album came out, and there are people that knew nothing about Motley Crue, didn't follow them until 1989 when they had the first and only number 1 album, Dr. Feelgood. I was like saying, okay, yeah, now they're on the cover of Rolling Stone. Now everybody else knows who they are, but I've been a fan since day one. Just and again, that Black Album, that is really when the career peaked. And what I mean is, they're still very successful today, but it's interesting because like we're saying, people go 50-50 with that album. They either really love it or they hate it. But that's probably like the best.
Yeah, I think I tend to like it more than I hate it because I understand the position they were in when it came out. They were at kind of like maybe in their minds they thought that the thrashy stuff had hit its peak.
Yeah.
And it was time to try and branch out a little bit and. like I said, they tore their asses off for that album, and that's what really made the album, what it went on to be, because they just kept going and going and going. It was, I must have been able to see them in my area in New York probably like 5 times on that tour, because they just kept coming back around.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. But again, point I was trying to make is that that's the album really where a lot of people that weren't a Metallica fan before really became a Metallica fan, and then that remains like their best-selling album. There's a lot of stuff they've done since. A lot of people don't like it as much as the Black Album, if you know what I mean, and some fans have been turned off since. I mean, I dare say probably the album I like, probably at least not the Black Album, Lulu. I don't know if you ever. What are your thoughts? Did you ever hear the one they did with Lou Reed?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. see, that was kind of a real let me down. But again, they were at a point in their career where I guess they felt like, we could put anything out we like and people are going to buy it. Some will, some won't. But the Black Album I really love, because the thing of it is I think they became better songwriters, and I think that had a lot to do with Bob Rock producing it. I mean, but before Metallica used to have a thing about, like, if you go on the first 3 albums, a lot of the songs were like 6-7 minute songs, and they purposely had like long songs. And then when they did this album, I think Bob Rock kind of told them, let's see if you guys can cut the songs down a little, and they were more like it was made it more friendly to get the stuff played, I guess, at MTV and on radio, and it seemed to work for them.
Yeah, I didn't mind that part of it, because I don't like long songs. My problem, like Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
9-10 minutes long. It's too much,
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Iron Maiden, they have a new album coming out in September, and I heard they're going to have 8 songs on the album, but they're such long songs that they have to break it up into 2 CDs.
Well, I saw the track listing. It's actually 10 songs.
Okay, 10 songs. Okay.
And they're going to put it out as a double CD and a triple vinyl.
Wow, amazing. Yeah.
I think the majority of the songs are right around 10 minutes, and the last 3 the last 3 songs I think are like 45 minutes long together.
Oh, amazing. And I'm glad I really chose you to talk about this with today, John, not just because you're a guy that's been a Metallica fan since like day one, but and you did this fanzine stuff early on, and that's a way you got to hang with the band early on. But it is also, as I said, 2021 marks the 30th anniversary of the Black Album, and that's special for all kinds of reasons. But I think also coming up in September, October, they're going to have a 30th anniversary of this Black Album coming out. It's got, I hear, like other people covering Metallica songs. They're going to have different editions. What do you think about that? Is that something you think you will be interested in purchasing?
No.
Yeah. You'd rather hear it in its original format.
Yeah, because if they would have had like Anthrax and Slayer and Exodus and all those kind of bands doing Metallica songs,
maybe.
Yeah, I'd want to hear it, definitely. But that's all these pop people and rappers and people I've never even heard of.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not really interested in that.
And see, I think they're doing that.
The good thing about it, the one good thing about it is that all the money that's made from it is going to charity. So that's really cool.
Oh, I dig that, and I guess we'll end this with what did you think when they did the Big 4 tour?
Oh, I thought that was great.
Yeah. I mean,
that was really, really cool. I don't know if I necessarily agree with everybody that those 4 bands are the Big 4.
Yeah.
Because there were bands before
them. Yeah.
Them that did stuff too that led to them being what they were. You could take bands like Anvil, Raven, Exciter, and Venom.
Yeah.
That might have been the pre-Big 4. People don't give enough credit to a band like Exciter, a band from Canada that was a 3-piece band, and the drummer was the singer. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Yeah,
I've heard those bands. Yeah.
But I mean, like, you want to do yourself a favor if anybody's out there listening, if you're into like fast music.
Yeah.
Violence and Force by Exciter.
Okay.
You'll look me up and thank me if. I mean, that's just brutal, heavy, fast stuff way before its time. Same with Raven. I don't think Raven gets enough credit for that too. Doing it at an early time. But the difference with Raven was John Gallagher's vocals. These very high-pitched screams and very crazy, kind of frantic songs that just, again, energy. And Anvil between Lips and Rob Reiner, the drummer, just some of the stuff they did, like songs like the album Metal on Metal. You take a song like 666,
Yeah.
and you put it into perspective of when they did that, like was it 1982, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. It's what bands like that were doing back then was the predecessor for Metallica. And I mean, Slayer was playing Judas Priest songs before.
Yeah. Yeah.
They started getting into all the fast, crazy stuff. Even a band like Saxon had a lot of fast songs back in 1980.
Oh yeah. I mean, Saxon. Yeah. I was gonna say Saxon was always. Go ahead.
As far as Metallica goes, they just did it their own way. They like I always thought too, the Metallica covers back then, like when they first started, when they were doing like the Prince and Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg, they did it better than the bands that wrote the songs. Yeah,
in fact, I heard the guy from Diamond Head. He was saying that he's got to thank James and Lars for covering all those great songs. He's like, I started to really make some bank because of that.
Yeah, I mean, Am I Evil and I think the Prince was the other Diamond Head song that they did early on. I mean, I saw them play that stuff live. It was like it was their own song. It was great.
Yeah, in fact, Lars said that when they started playing those covers, like in their club days, a lot of people thought they were actually Metallica songs. He had to tell them, no, we're covering these are songs that we grew up on.
I had the same thing in the Dead End Kidz. I remember, I'll never forget one night we played Too Hot to Handle by UFO.
Oh, wow.
And people came up to me afterwards and said, man, who wrote that song? And I'm like, wait a minute.
You don't know?
You don't know who that is?
Yeah.
They thought we wrote it. They're like, which one of you guys wrote that song?
That's got to be a great feeling that, you perform a song so well that they think that's a signature tune.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I love that song. That's good stuff.
Before we wrap this up, John, I guess the very last thing I'm going to ask you about Metallica's Black Album is interesting kind of album cover for artwork, just a black cover. I don't know if they got the idea from Spinal Tap, but Spinal Tap even accused them of that. What was your thought when the album came out and you said, oh, this album cover?
Yeah, pretty much. But I thought to myself, I'm like, it could have been just all black and people would still buy it.
Yeah.
And I think they proved the point that it's the music that counts always. That's what it is. It's not what's on the album cover. It's what's between inside the sleeve.
Yeah. And sometimes it's interesting the life that fans can give to a band or even a particular song. You were just saying earlier how you'd read that James Hetfield said how he cannot stand playing Enter Sandman. But yeah, let's be honest, it's a great guitar riff. It sticks in your head, and that is one song they're going to have to play for the rest of their career. And it's interesting that while it really kind of is one of those songs that fans just gravitate towards, the guy who wrote it and sings it, he just can't stand singing. Very much like Janie Lane used to hate singing Cherry Pie. That was his biggest hit song, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the blessing is the curse,
Yeah.
But hey, he's got to thank that song for all it did for him.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the song. Again,
Yeah.
I think if it was another band putting that album out, I would have liked it 10 times more than I did. And don't get me wrong, I do like it, and I like it a lot. But there are some songs on it that I could do without.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
And I was just reading.
I'm like one of those weird people that I'm like kind of in the middle. I lead more towards liking it because it wasn't like they totally changed.
No.
It wasn't to me anyway. I mean, I know a lot of people. Oh, it's they wimped out and they sold out or whatever. That's like, come on, man.
They actually got more backlash on the next album they did, Load, for cutting their hair short. I mean,
well, those two albums, again, it was just like Kiss. It was like that was their Dynasty Unmasked and The Elder. That was their 3 albums in a row that people just like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah. Well, John,
I didn't like Load and Reload either. Those albums I really didn't like. Those albums I never even owned them. I didn't like them at all.
Wow. Well, John,
songs again. It's got like I remember a song. I think it's called Devil's Dance.
Yeah. That's it. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Like and like Fuel, I thought was cool. There again, some of the songs were all right, but some of the stuff just was too left field for me.
Yeah.
But the Black Album kind of still retained that heaviness.
Yeah, Yeah, and what's amazing is the Black Album, I forgot to even look this up, but I know it remained on the charts for not just a huge amount of time, but for years. Like, it was released only a couple years ago.
One of the biggest selling albums ever.
All time. It is still selling to this day.
Yeah.
And you know, it just is amazing. And I guess we'll wrap it up for tonight. So just to let you know, John, the interview we just did tonight is going to post in early August, probably the first or second week of August. I'll let you know the minute it goes up. And after that, we'll schedule another day to do one of these interviews. And just because I knew there was going to be so much to talk about, and so I thought, well, part one we can be about Metallica, and then part two is going to be, since you're a mutual Kiss fan like me, we can talk about The Elder, because I thought that's one album that kind of really gets either forgotten about or not discussed much, and it'll make for a fun, interesting conversation for that very reason.
Without doubt.
And then maybe part two of the interview we can wrap it up with talking about KICKASS FOREVER, which is part of what you're doing now to promote other bands.
Yeah, very cool.
And then I guess before we say goodbye, you have, I understand, KICKASS FOREVER t-shirts and merchandise you're selling. Do you want to tell anybody where they could find out about that?
Yeah, you can either, any social media, you just find KICKASS FOREVER and send me a message, and or you can search on, I think they're up on eBay, actually.
Oh, okay.
You find them on eBay. And there's no Z's or anything in that. It's just KICKASS FOREVER.
Yeah. Well, you like I said, the Johnny Erigo story goes way back, so we were trying to tell it the best we could tonight. So I hope we accomplished that.
I appreciate somebody caring to hear my story, man. It's very cool.
Yeah, well, what's cool about it, John, is you started out as a musician yourself, and the band's not really around anymore, but you got a cool little fan base because of it, and even though you don't have a band going, you're still supporting other bands. That's what I dig.
Fans first, buddy.
Yeah,
never changes.
Take care, John. You have a good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
man. You too. Appreciate it.